Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Roland Thompson. Roland served in the U.S. Navy for three tours, in Vietnam. Roland, after 42 years, left the financial services world to focus on his life's calling. Author of 2 books, one as a compilation with Jack Canfield, and a bestseller titled Mastering the Art of Success. Father of 10 children, a yours, mine, ours, and their situation. He is known as the Connection Grandpa. He and his wife, Terry, are the grandparents and great-grandparents of 47 children. They also are foster parents of 6 medically fragile children. President of the Heart of Fathers Foundation, which mission is making the world better by empowering the rising generation to live the reason they are here. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Roland. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Hey, thanks, Dwight. It was also, like you said, it was great to meet you in real life here a couple months ago.
Yes, we met back in October in Sandy, Utah, just outside of Salt Lake at Jake Ballantyne's event for speakers, authors, and coaches. It was fantastic because I had spent most of the pandemic like this on Zoom, right, and got to know you guys, got to meet you, got to laugh at your lovely sense of humor, which I love, by the way. Listeners, you're going to love this conversation that Roland and I are about to have. He is a
no pressure on me now.
That's right. he's a breath of fresh air in a world that has just gone kind of batshit crazy. So, Roland, one of the things I focus on, and it's not completely unique, but it's unique for most podcasts. People are surface level where they just want to know, what are your successes? What did you do? What are you, yes, we want to talk about that, but it needs to start at a foundation. And for me, the foundation is a person's origin story, right? From your earliest recollections, yes, you might say and joke, well, that's a long time ago. That's in the rearview mirror. But we're all a combination of our origin story from when we're little all the way to adulthood. So if you could do me a favor, what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently?
Wow, it's interesting because I would always tell about growing up in the welfare of projects of Seattle when I was little. And my parents divorced 5 years after they got married and had my 2 little brothers. And I mean, it was really rough neighborhood. I think I was actually the biggest wimp in the neighborhood. I think there was one kid I could beat up, and then she moved. So it's actually downhill after that. But I grew up very poor. I lived probably the first 10 years of my life with my mom, and then switched over the second 10 years of my life with my dad, with my brothers. But we were never well-to-do. I was so poor when I was growing up. I actually never slept alone until I got married. So it's kind of a, just. But it was. I'm blessed by that. I really am, because it taught me work ethic. But when I got out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. None. I didn't keep tabs of what was going on in the media. Nothing. I don't watch the news. Vietnam was going on, and I really didn't care or anything. But and I had no idea. It was no thing about going to college. Then one day I was working at a fast food place after I graduated, and there was this lady. Her name's Donna, and she good 10, 20, 15 years older than me, but we were really good friends. And I was living with my dad and my two brothers. We were just bachelors partying all the time. And she asked me, she said, so what are you going to do with your life? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. She goes, so you're just going to live with your dad for the rest of your life? I said, wow, I never thought of that. And she goes, well, my husband, Dave, he was in the Navy and he really did enjoy it while he was there. Maybe you should join the Navy. And this is true, Dwight. I looked at her and go, oh my gosh, I think I will. And the next day I joined the Navy. Now,
Wow.
that's when I learned that Vietnam was going on. I spent 1970, July 70 to December, and then 71 not, and then 72 and 73. And between 72 and 73 got married. But where my life really, one of the biggest life lessons that came to me was after I got married, ended up having 4 children. My wife was pregnant with my 5th child. I was working at an organization. I actually, 7 years after I got out of service, I went back to school, got my accounting degree, a couple of AAs, and then I was working at this organization for 5 years. And this is where I try to tell people, follow your heart. Don't follow logic. The most successful people in the world are those who got there because they followed their heart. Logic people do not understand heart people, but heart people do understand logic people and trust that heart. And so and that's like when I joined the Navy, my heart just said, you know what, do it. And I did, and it took me overseas. I mean, been all overseas, but I got married to a young lady, and she wasn't a citizen. She was from South Pacific. We ended up having children, worked for this organization. For 5 years, I was an assistant manager. The manager was like a dad to me. I loved the man very much. It was such a great, and it's such a great job. It was, and I mean, I could do it for the rest of my life. And so one day our regional manager came in to town and wanted to talk to us. Well, my manager guy, he went in, sat down, and it was in his office. The guy came and visited him and talked to him. Now I'm sitting out in the lobby and I'm like really nervous. So the manager, Warren, he came out of the office and he had this crushed look on his face, devastating. And I looked at him and I go, what's the matter? He goes, well, they fired me. I go, what? He said, well, actually, they gave me your job as assistant manager. I go, oh my gosh. And so I was going in next, and I sat there with the regional manager. Now I just got my degree from college, and he was sitting there telling me, he said, well, Warren never had a college degree. He was raised in the 20s and the 30s, and he really did, he got by, just, he was very talented. And he said, we're changing the management position and it requires a college degree. And so we can't give him the position, but we're going to offer you that position. Now this meant double income. I mean, it was a lot of freedom. But I looked at him and I said, heart. Logic tells you, well, of course you take it, right? But heart. Heart said, when I told him, I said, no. I didn't even think about it. No, I can't do that. I could never do that to him. And he goes, well, then you don't have a job. And I'm thinking, wow, go home to your wife, say, hey, honey, I got offered this great job, management. I turned it down and now we're unemployed. Yeah. But the next thing he said, well, we do have 3 positions open, one in Southeast Washington, one in one in Oakland and one in Portland. And he said, they're open, but you got to apply like everybody else. And just so you know, you're 10 years younger than the next oldest manager that's out there. And I go, okay. So, and his concern was I was too jovial too. And I said, well, I can be serious. But anyway, I dreamed about the one in Southeast Washington. I had a dream that night. And I went back and I said, hey, I want to be considered for that one. He said, okay. He said, it was challenging. So anyway, long story short, I got the position, moved to the other side, moved out of where I was raised to the other side. I took my wife, 4 kids. She's pregnant. And I'm sitting here. It was in February of 40 years ago, February 81. And I came, moved, beautiful home, just most awesome job. I do this for the rest of my life. I was set for the rest of my life. It's like, hey, you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans, And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, okay, this is great. Well, June of that year, my youngest son was born. So I had 5 kids. 1 month later, on July 20th, 4 days before my 30th birthday, my oldest son drowns at a picnic with the whole family. Now, that was pretty devastating. And my dad came over and we became really close. My dad and I were just, I've brought us closer than close we've ever been. And at that year, I was able to tell them I loved them. Never told them I loved them before, because that wasn't a macho thing. You don't hug your parents and, dad thing. And and it was almost 6 months to the day, December 17th, 81. That was just 40. And I get a call at home and my dad's best friend said, hey, Roland. I go, hey, Dan, how you doing? He said, hey, Roland, your dad's dead. Now, my dad just turned 49. And I go, wow, what happened? Well, he shot himself. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And then my grandmother, we're really close. I'm 10 years older than what she was at that time. And I'm sitting there and she had cancer, but didn't tell my dad because they were really close. And she died 6 months later of cancer. And then my grandfather died of a heart attack. Then I went through a divorce. My wife left, the family packed up, went back to the other side of the mountains. I go from being 29 years old, the best job, everything in the world, to 2 years later being 31 years old, homeless, jobless, broke. But I would not be where I am today if I had not gone through that. Because and it's kind of like the story of the Chinese farmer. If you ever heard that story, but it's good news, bad news. We'll see. So now when things happen, I always, some people perceive it as a tragedy or challenge. I can look at them as challenges. Moment things happen, I'm always sitting there thinking, okay, something good's going to be coming out of this. Because when you go through a timeline, here we are, we're living along this timeline. An event happens, like what I just went through, that 2 years, 5 family members. And those are events. Now I can carry those with me and attach all that with me and drag me back. But that event actually belongs to that day. And what you do is you take all that you learn from that and those experiences, because we are spiritual beings here to have these human experiences. And you take that and say, okay, what can I do to make life better for other people? What can I learn from this? What good's going to come out of this? And when I'm looking for it, it always does. Now I'm been married going on 39 years, after that, children, grandchildren, and I can't imagine life being better than what it is. So I'm always on, I know that challenges are going to happen, events are going to happen even now. So
but really, if you don't have challenges and you don't have struggles and strifes, how can you ever experience joy? I've had this conversation with many people. I just want to always be happy. That's unrealistic. It's completely unrealistic. You can be happy. You can have a happy life. You can surround yourselves. It's your choice to be happy, but there's always going to be despair. There's going to be death, whether it's natural or suicide. Somebody gets extremely sick, or, you have a birth, grandkid, whatever, or your own children, you're going to be extremely happy. But then people they don't live in happy. They seem to always attract
it's a choice.
negative.
It is a choice, though. It is a choice.
Absolutely.
How you react to it. Yeah.
It's so, I love that though. Thank you. Like, I'm looking at the notes I wrote down here, first 10 years with your mom, second 10 years with your dad and brothers. Then you have a woman that tells you, you know what? You should join the Navy. And you go and do it. You know what? God was talking to you through her. People always look for answers and are always searching for change. You may not agree with me, but sometimes, just like that old story, the flood's coming and they send a boat, they send the helicopter, all
The
this stuff. The
law,
guy drowns, and God says to him, like, listen, what else did you want me to send you? God doesn't directly affect our lives. He allows
right.
other people to affect us. We have to, and then obviously there's the evil portion of life when we have to decide and disseminate what's good and bad. But God, from what you're saying here, there was God all over this.
No, and you know what, Dwight? I don't even tell that to a lot of people because that's, I live it. I know that. I know without a shadow that it's not a belief, it's not a faith, it's total knowledge that I know that God was part of that. And when you recognize it, you always say, okay, he's got me on this path and I'm on this journey. I mean, here I am, I'm going to be 71 this year. And it took me just that long, these last few years, to find out what my real purpose is on earth. And realize that all those other years, a lot of people are, frustrated because they haven't discovered their purpose yet. But for this, it's like, well, just keep going on, keep looking, because keep seeking, keep asking, keep knocking, and eventually you'll find out that all this time that you've been wondering where it's at, you've been in training. And you've been being trained to that moment that where he's going to really need you. That's where I am in my life. And it took me.
But how many people avoid to even get to where you're at or where I'm at? We constantly are, oh, why is life unfair? All of a sudden somebody's talking to them and they're ignoring it because they're so stuck in their negativity, yet God sent them that person to just give them a, little bit of uplifting conversation, or God sent them a better job, or God sent them to here and there. They're always looking for all the answers, but yet they're not open-minded to seeing the answers or seeing,
right. Well,
what I mean?
That's one of the reasons why you're here. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is because we do need those people, we need to reach out to them somehow, because the joy and the peace and the happiness that we feel in our hearts, full, knowing that every single human being on this planet, 8 billion people, no one has any more right to be on this planet than anyone else. That 8 billion people can all have that. And if every single human being was living the reason they were here, we'll be ready for that next millennium. You know what I mean?
Well, and given the opportunity, though,
Yeah.
look at all that. Look at the populations of China and India. We'll use them as an example. You're talking roughly 3 billion people, and they don't have opportunities that other people don't have. They don't even have the ability, some a good portion of population, because they're being controlled, to even find their purpose. They're living on a hamster wheel. And then we're in Western civilization. We have choices coming out the butt. We have so many different good things and we sit and we dwell and we feel sorry for ourselves, and we have entitled attitudes. And really, you know what? Take all that, toss it aside, and just go out and serve. Be kind.
Yeah. Be kind, be kind, be kind.
That's the number one thing. And people live lives of quiet desperation, and they learn something from their parents that their parents learned from their parents, and they propagate it, or they learn it from social media. Now today, past it was just the media, newspapers, television, and people lost the ability to be critical thinkers, to actually go, you know what, that doesn't sound right. And if it makes me feel bad, maybe I shouldn't be listening or reading that. Maybe I need to associate with people like a Roland who are going to give me information that may have some negativity in it, but there's going to be more. He's going to take me on a roller coaster, but he's going to end it on the high, not the low. He's going to give me tools and things that can make me think differently. Be that knowledge, that knowledge warrior.
Where 1 + 1 = 3. You're out there and you can together, it's like team. Together, everyone achieves more.
And I love what you said. Logic doesn't understand heart, but heart understands logic. Now, listeners, if you missed that, rewind and listen to it again. Logic doesn't understand heart, but heart understands logic. That is so simple, but such a powerful thing for people to adhere to, right? Just like living a life of being grateful and gratitude and appreciating what we have, and always serving up more than taking is so important. That is profound. I like just how simple you put it, but it is so true. I'm an empath. I'm way too much heart some days, but I can look at people that are overly logic and just go to myself, oh my gosh, what, how can I talk to that person? What wordsmithing can I do? What can I present to them? What can I offer them? Whether, hey, maybe you should read this book. Maybe you should listen to this podcast. Hey, let's go for a coffee and have a conversation. What can I offer up with my heart so that they can break past logic and understand that heart is where really the stepping stone of life starts at, and then it continues to build the rest of your life till the day you take your last breath by having heart instead of making everything so cut and dried.
It's interesting you bring when we face and we're facing people. I've kind of done a mind shift this last year. Who hasn't really, and I started realizing that, you know what, Dwight, ask yourself, how would you feel if every single human being on this planet today loved you unconditionally for who you are? How would you feel?
Blessed.
Oh, yeah. Now, the other thing, is that a possibility? Well, of course, it's possible, but improbable. It's possibility. The other thing is that every single human being just wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And so and the other thing, my wife kind of disagrees with a little bit on here. I view everyone I meet and run across, strangers, everyone, that every single human being is doing the best they can. Now, people disagree with that, but
with the tools they have, I agree.
Yeah,
they're doing the best they can with the tools they have.
And can you prove otherwise unless you know who that person is, who they are?
So you have to make assumptions. Sometimes assumptions have to be made, right?
So is it better to err on the side of focusing on somebody who isn't doing the best they can, and you focus and treat them as though they are doing the best they can? Or is it better to err on where somebody isn't doing the best they can, and you err on the side of assuming that they are doing the best they can? And when you sit there and you look at it, to me, it's obvious. You much always want to err towards the side of good because you don't want to hurt anybody. The other way hurts a person, and you want people to be loved. So if a person comes at me in their anger or whatever emotion that they're there, anger has nothing to do with who a person is. It's just a who person, when they know who they are, would never get angry.
But anger is a secondary emotion too.
It's an emotion.
A secondary emotion.
Right. And when you sit there and you look at somebody who is anger at you or whatever, and realize that person, okay, they're doing the best they can. It makes me pause. I don't react. I don't react to anger or emotions because I always want to be in the control of leadership. I don't want to follow what somebody throws at me. And I pause and thinking, okay, this person's doing the best they can. And what they're doing right now is, if their deepest desire is to be loved, this somehow is tied to them trying to be loved, just not knowing how. And where a lot of people, they think giving gifts and stuff, but to truly love somebody from the heart and really connect with them, you can feel that because that energy, that spirit. And people say, well, that's hogwash. Well, tell me, how am I sitting here in the United States looking at Dwight Heck talking, and there's no wires?
Yeah.
And I can see him. And it's like, it's all through energy. You can't comprehend. And we're learning. We're only tipping.
Everything's energy. Everything's energy.
Everything. That's right? When I sit there. Yeah. When I tell people about meditating, meditation or inspiration, it comes to you. I say, well, so you view this as just a bag of bones and skin, and those are just atoms bouncing off the top of your skull that is making you think that way. That made you, oh, you know what? I invented something. It's like, so.
Yeah, wow. Listeners, I hope or anybody that's watching this on YouTube, I hope you're enjoying yourself as much as I am. One of the things Roland mentioned, like, where are we going with this? And what was my response? This is a conversation. I've got questions down. If we get to them, great. If not, that's what life's about. People are so sick and tired of structure. when it comes to media and just surface level. This is the real, authentic Roland and what you want to present to the world, whether it took you 70 years to get there, where it took me 54 years to get where I am. We understand that service of others is critical. And always, like you talked about the fact of always thinking good of people. I talk to people about the fact, and my loyal listeners have heard me talk about this lots. I believe, and I've raised my kids this way, when you meet people, the first time you ever meet them, no matter what their temperament is, you don't know what's going on behind the facade of their life. Always give them a modicum of respect, and then give them opportunity for you to enter, open the door, and find out what they're about. Don't judge them, because only one person in my life can judge me, and that's not any human being walking on this planet. Only person that can judge me is God. That's it. Bottom
line. So that
line.
was just question number one.
Yeah, just wait.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can get through the question.
Okay.
Let's see if I can diverse.
Okay. So, I guarantee people are enjoying this. So Roland, you served in the U.S. Navy for 3 tours in Vietnam. Thank you for your service, by the way. Can you tell me?
Recognizing that.
Yeah.
Thanks for honoring that.
Because bottom line, as a side note, listeners, Americans, Canadians, we are brothers and sisters of one another. We're brothers and sisters around the world. My podcast is listened to in 23 different countries now. Thank you to those that are listening from other countries, but other places besides North America. At bottom line, people fought for freedoms and fought for you to be, to live a life today where you can even listen to my podcast. Because if you're listening to my podcast, you have a computer, or you have a smart device. You've been blessed with technology. You've been blessed with somebody that's either gotten it for you, helped you get it, you got it yourself. Appreciate the fact that people like Roland went out and were willing to sacrifice their lives to make your life better, whether it was in the US or it was in, somewhere else in the world. Somebody put their life on the line for you. And I appreciate that tremendously.
Thanks, Dwight.
So can you tell me some of the lessons learned while serving that carried into your faith, family, and work from your service in the Navy?
Oh my gosh. It's funny because they're reflecting on this. Oh, there's a joke. I don't even know. This is probably the first time I ever said it. There's a special bond that you have between men when you've served in an event where people are trying to kill each other. And that bond, I'm closer to today, 50 years later, to my buddies. And we get together, we chat all the time, and we truly love each other. And that's the one that I think is what I got from it was that you don't have to be blood to be family.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were from all over the United States. And so it's kind of when we look at the events, like I said, the events that we went through belong to the day that it happened. We're just carrying it on. And a couple of my buddies dealing with PTSD, and some of them, because we were exposed to Agent Orange, is dealing with, the cancer. And so there's a lot of, it helped me realize spirituality too. It's during then that I realized that I was strictly a spiritual person. I didn't know that until then, that I'm a spiritual being here, have human experiences. And then, and the other thing is getting married and have my kids. So, and even today, my foundation it's a calling. And one of the people that had a significant effect in this is a person I had lunch with about 4 years ago in Boston. He was being honored. He was my executive officer in my third tour, and he was a Medal of Honor winner, and they were honoring him as a Medal of Honor winner. And I was able to get a hold of him and flew over to Boston. I was going for an event there, and him and I had lunch. And it was we're sitting, and I said, oh, I was joking, I was trying to reach out to a person who was formerly governor there, and I said to do a forward on a book I was working on, and he goes, oh wow. He said he doesn't live here anymore. He moved to California. I go, really? He said, yeah. He goes, I said, oh, you know him? He said, well, yeah, I served in his cabinet when he was governor, and we're best friends. Like, what are the odds? And then I read his book, and he said, well, he writes about me in his book. So I read the book, and I got to chapter 6 in that book. It said that the boomer generation, moi, is heading to becoming the worst generation. And then he talked about Tom Brokaw, The Greatest Generation, his book talking about our grandparents and parents. And then I really looked into it, and I go, oh my gosh, I do not want to leave that kind of legacy, and you talked about legacy of being part of the worst generation. Is there something I could do? And then I started seeking and asking and knocking, and it's so funny that coincidences is God's way of remaining anonymous. So when I sit there and I think of all these coincidences happen, such as meeting with him in the book, and then finding, there's so many things that led me to it, realizing that as Christians, I'll say as Christians, somebody said one of the greatest missions of Christians is to prepare the world for the second coming. That's and I thought, oh, wow, how do you do that? And then I was reading in the last 2 verses of Malachi, last 2 verses in the Old Testament, though, actually the last fulfilled prophecy type of thing. And the last 2 verses said, before the great dreadful day, the Lord will send the prophet Elijah, who will bring the heart of the fathers, to me, that would be my grandchildren, to the children, and the heart of the children, to them, that would be their purpose and mission in life, to the fathers. And I thought, and that scripture, when I read it, just struck me. I don't know if you've ever read any passages anywhere, and you're just impacted at that moment by that scripture. That's kind of the way that you get.
Well, you can feel it. You can feel it.
If there's a reason for it.
Yeah, it can washes over you. It's like a warm, fuzzy feeling, and it's profound. I hear what you're saying.
And that happened right there at that time. And then next thing I started, dealing with realizing that the youth are actually going to be these young people are going to be the leaders of the world. We can't fix it up here. There's no way. Too much division right now. And it's getting, and people are focused, and that's drawing people's attention away from what really needs to work. There's nothing you can do about that.
Well, it's noise. It's noise, right?
And where we got to focus is the future leaders of this world. Absolutely. And letting them discover their primary spiritual purpose of being here, knowing that exists. And we got to get them that connection. And that's the primary. It's our hearts to theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important, and realizing that all your profound things you've spoken about thus far in our conversation are all stepping stones to where you are today, and to not share that knowledge with the up and coming, where we're rising them up to be their future leaders and future generations of goodness and kindness,
right,
is really a disservice to God. Because your knowledge, good, bad, and ugly and different, also comes along with joy, happiness, excitement, and all the other things. And when you can extrapolate to 2 and use all the negative to uplift the positive in your life, and then teach it to the youth, like, that is so powerful. And yes, we all say we only want to touch one person. If we only touch one person at a time, that we've done good. But if you touch one person, people always remember, what does a spider do? A spider creates a web. It starts at one point and it goes everywhere. Roland in my example I'm giving you, is a spider, and he's creating a web. And if he helps one person, that person's thought process changes. They become another spider and create another web.
I use an apple seed. Last year it came to me, an apple seed, and I'm sitting there thinking, look at this little black apple seed. If I could turn in 15 years through nurturing of that apple seed, letting it focus on its purpose, it could become an orchard of 1,200 trees in 15 years. So if a person's sitting there and when your audience and they're only sitting there, because my focus, for me, I'm a grandparent. I have 47 grandchildren. It's like I always joke people and say, "Wow, who are all these kids? Why do they keep calling me grandpa?" You know, how come I have no money at the end of the year? But
Yeah.
but I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, they're the future generation. If I need, and at this part of my life, that's got to be my priority, is them, not nothing else. That's my main priority, my main focus. You know, I don't know if I showed you there. I showed my socks that I have all these different colored socks I wear: purple, yellow, blue, green, red, and they all got my picture. Each one is a grandkid's picture on it. And those are the only
Sweet.
socks I wear, except today I'm wearing my in-house slippers. But I wear those when I go out in public. And I'll wear a purple one and a green one. And it's got this grandchild's face on. And it starts conversations. But it keeps me focused that right now, my life is dedicated in them. Can I share with you a story?
Absolutely. Go for it. Love to. Love to hear
This
it.
story, this story, actually read it 20 years ago. And by coincidence, it popped into me. I was doing, after a presentation or right before a presentation to some Nigerian educators in Nigeria. That was on Zoom. And one day, while standing on the riverbank, the townspeople were alerted by several people screaming frantically as they were being carried down the raging water's current. Moved by their plight, the caring townspeople immediately rescued these people from the raging water. As time went on, more and more people needed to be rescued. So the town committed more and more of their annual budget to fixing this problem. They hired professional rescue workers. They built a riverside hospital. They created rehabilitation programs. They invented ever more sophisticated rescue devices, and they trained volunteers. Well, one day, after several years of rescuing people from the river, one young man said, "Hey, why don't we just fix the bridge?" Well, several of the rescue workers, most of them said, "You know what? I don't know. I'm too busy to give any thought to this idea." A few of them said, "Well, I've never seen a bridge." So they didn't want to venture from the familiar. Still, there were others that said, "I don't know how to fix the bridge." And so during this time, 4 years ago, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, suicide, the high rate. Do you know that every day, on the average in our country, 3,703 teenagers attempt suicide? And they've been said that 15 to 20% of all youth contemplate suicide. And when I look at my 47 grandchildren and think that 7 or 8 of them are contemplating suicide, it's like I started turning and I'm looking, how can we stop this? And everywhere I turned, I came to rescue workers. Nobody was fixing the bridge. And it's like, oh my gosh, fixing the bridge. It's like, but everyone I talk to said, when I talk to older people, boomers and grandparents, and it's like, well, 40% of them are lonely and depressed and just going through hard life, let alone trying to reach to the rising generation. They just say, "I don't know how to fix the bridge." So I'm working, and I'm the person, in fact, to fix the bridge. In fact, I secured the URL. My email is now going to be Roland@fixthebridge.com. But how do we fix the bridge? And it's like, well, wait, So by coincidence, here's another one of these coincidences 4 years ago. I look at my grandchildren. About 5 years ago, one of my grandchildren was 16 years old, living at home with his parents who were dealing with some heavy drug issues. And he ended up having to be taken out of the house while they had to go take care of their consequences of their drug issue. And it's like, this kid was in his room. He was being depressed. He was just recluse. He was struggling in school. He was a junior in high school. And so of course, I said, oh my gosh, we had to take him in. So I had to put on my old dad hat, and I said, by gosh, I'm gonna get him on track to graduate high school and do all this. So we moved in our house, and I took all these things that all the people my age are saying. Well, you're gonna ground you off your cell phone and get off the computer and doing all this stuff that I thought worked for my kids way back when. But you know what? He became more depressed, to the point that when I talked to him later, he was contemplating ending his life. And I realized that out of frustration, then I realized, and by coincidence, I'm going through this and realized that I've been telling people, if you learn who they are, if you really learn who they are and make that your focus, then they will know who you are. So I did no more judging, no more grounding off the computer or anything. I just learned everything. Now, at the time, he dropped out of school in his junior year in high school, but I just put it all there. I just learned about him. And it was amazing what he was doing in his room on the computer and the things he was studying and the work that he was doing. It's like, oh my gosh. In fact, at one point he talked about he wanted to be a professional gamer. Now, think about it, Dwight. Okay. Yeah, you're going to really do well in life if you're going to be a professional gamer. That's what I'm thinking. Well, then he started telling me it's $1 billion industry. And I go, oh my God, I didn't criticize at all. I just listened. And I tried to be silent. Listen and silent have the same letters in it. And so I tried to just listen and learn and kept being curious. I started being curious about it. And then I started just doing that. And after a few months, he ended up getting his GED on his own. And it took that long for that trust came back and we became really close. And so one day he came out of his room and he goes, so what would you think if I joined the Army? Now, in my mind, inside of my head said, yes, it's discipline and all this.
Yeah.
And then I said, sure, maybe you want to look at the Navy, that's what Grandpa did. And so anyway, it was going through, and a few months he got ready, and it took a while, struggle to get ready and pass the physicals. And he was just getting ready to sign his name to commit. And he looked up and he said, what would you think if I went on a mission, a service mission for the church? And I'm inside my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, right. You haven't been to church and all this, but I didn't. I just listened and encouraged. He was following his heart and realized how spiritual this young man was. And he took off and he spent 2 years in the Philippines, in the third world part of the Philippines, learned Tagalog.
Wow.
He's come back a year, almost 2 years now. He just flew home here a little bit ago, come back. And he ended up going in the Army, serving in Army intelligence, learning language. And I'm on the phone all the time. I'm learning so much from him. There's a lot of stuff he doesn't tell me. He can't tell me, but I learned so much from him just in life and what these young people are about. And we connected. Do you know a bridge is damaged because there's no connection. And that's what we got to do to fix the bridge, is to connect. How do you connect? And you realize that if every single human being in this world wants to be loved, and love is not an emotion, but it's actually the spirit that you feel inside you, and that when you know that you connect in love for everyone, then they know that they're not alone. There's not that the road where the isolation intersects with hopelessness, which creates depression. And so that's what my foundation, Heart of the Father's Foundation, is helping making that connection. And right now I'm focused with grandparents. It's like, yeah, okay, you got my attention. I want to be a bridge fixer. What do I need to do? Well, that's what we're working on. I said, well, I can be contacted at roland@fixabridge.com. You can join the Facebook. I'm a Facebooker. I mean, it just took me so long to learn about MySpace and get it down just a few months ago. Now they're doing Facebook. What they've been doing, I've been doing it for a while. Now I'm
14,
learning it.
14, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, now they're probably going to change with this Instagram stuff. Anyway, but
Well,
so that's where my purpose, and as you know, you can
yeah.
probably tell I'm a little passionate about this.
Well, and you know what? Passion and purpose, they tie together, right? You have to have passion. But you brought up so many great things from that one question that, I don't even know where to,
Divert.
but that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Don't ever apologize. That's what conversation is.
Right.
Real life conversation, a real world. There's diversion, and then
Yeah,
there's
you're right.
coming back, and it's just the way it is, right? But yeah, I'm not even going to bother. There's so many good notes I wrote down here. We're just going to let the listeners reach out to you and communicate more with you about it, or rewind and listen to that again, because there were so many nuggets of good information. Starting off, the only thing I will bring up though is you said the bond you served with the people, like the family connection, that extended family. That's just the same way I feel about so many different people in my life, right? Mentors that are, different cultures, Indian, Filipino, Caucasian, Black people, list goes on. Everybody has value.
They're all citizens of the planet Earth.
Exactly.
Just
They're all
we live in those different places.
Exactly. And children of God, right? They are all our extended family. And I'm closer to certain people in my life that are not blood related, and their extended family. And so that really resonated with you saying that the people you served with, you got a bond, and it's never going to be broken. Right. And sometimes it's impossible to keep bonds connected with people that are blood related, because blood related people, I find many of them, not all of them, but many of them are jealous of one another. There's lots of jealousy. There's lots of resentment. There's lots of, like criticism, and the list goes on, because, they feel that they have the right to judge you, or they have the right to give you information about how your life should go, just because they're related, and air quotes for the listeners, right? They're related to you, or that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my aunt, my uncle, that's my mom, my dad. You know what? At the end of the day, I can love somebody from a distance still, because I can love their love and have that spiritual connection to the goodness that I see in them that they don't see. But it doesn't mean I have to like being around them and poison my spirit, the love that I give out to the universe. So I really appreciated that, and then you talked about too as well, I wrote down reactive versus proactive. What's most of our society today? They're reactive. You, with your own grandson, you talked about the fact of people need to listen. I had somebody ask me here recently, if you had to do something differently in your life, what would be the most key thing that you would tell your younger self? Shut up and listen. Listen more. Listen more. Like the old saying goes, 2 ears, one mouth. But what do?
Can't learn very much while you're talking.
Right. And ask good questions. And don't ever judge people at like a grandchild or somebody that's younger. Don't have that attitude, listeners, or people watching, that just because you're older means you're wiser. Wisdom is a combination of errors, corrections, moving forward, errors, corrections, moving forward. You keep on going through that in life, and you create wisdom because of you learn from your mistakes in life. You make them a life lesson, right? I don't believe in mistakes. There's life lessons, and that creates more wisdom. But that doesn't mean somebody younger than you can't teach you something. They can't know more than you. And you brought that up, that you could learn stuff from your grandson. And that's a humbling thing to know and to admit that you needed to be quiet and just listen.
To change. I wanted him to change, but I realized that I'm the one that needed to change. And why I think that everyone needs to realize that.
Absolutely.
If you sit there and it's kind of like, if you don't, there's a lot of quotes that if you don't like the way that the world is, just change your mind, is that, or something like that, kind of a.
So we're going to go on to a different different tangent. So you're the author of 2 books. One is a compilation with Jack Canfield and a
Right.
bestseller titled Mastering the Art of Success. Can you tell us how it came about that you got to work with Jack and share with us some of the details about the book and what it teaches?
Well, my first experience goes back late 90s. So when I was really, involved in my career, financial career, and I was doing a lot of studying with, there's another, Brian Tracy. And so I was doing a lot, using a lot, and I'm really in the financial world. I was in the same world that you were. And so, and we did a lot of conferences. We went to a lot of conferences, right? I mean, that's what we did. And we'd look for motivational people all the time. And I would just go to motivational conferences and get inspired. And so one day there was an offer to go down to Santa Barbara and spend 8 days with Jack Canfield. This is, my wife is kind of not her world, but this is what my world was. And the funny part was we were way up northern Washington, up by the dam up there, Grand Coulee Dam, I think that's the name of it. And we were up there driving, and I'm like, okay, the investment for this event was substantial, to go and spend 8 days with him and a group of people, and just transformational, believe me. And I thought, how am I going to tell my wife? Because I was wanting to teach self-esteem and things. And she's not gonna buy off on this. So we're sitting up there driving, and I go, oh, I'm thinking about doing this thing, going down and spending 8 days down in Santa Barbara. And then she goes, why, what, questioning and stuff. And then it got to the point that was like, wait a minute. Then she said something, why don't I go? Her. And I go, oh my gosh, that is a great idea. And I was dead serious. I said, if you go down there, you learn and you get the certification and you're doing all that, when you come back, you can teach me and we can work together on this. This would be a dream for me. So I booked the flight. I was getting ready to book. And like a week before she was going to leave, she just said, because she's pretty introverted, just a great woman. And she just said, I've been thinking about it. Maybe you should go. And are you sure? She goes, yeah. So I had, no, you go. Whereas when we first started the conversation, it was like,
Yeah,
that was an answer to prayer. That was a God thing.
of course.
And you pray about it, and it's like, and it ended with and began, but it ended with the really. So that's how I got involved learning Jack stuff and things. And I would go to, I was belonging to a boot camp. I would go with a coach that was coaching that coached with Jack, and I signed up coaching with that gentleman, and did this a few years ago, and it evolved to getting to know. And then there was this opportunity to do a compilation book through I'm trying to think that it's a celebrity publisher people. So I went ahead and did my part in the book about success. Mine was overcoming obstacles, and I put it in the book. And the book, of course, because it's already becomes a bestseller. That's mainly for me. It's not about me anymore, about that kind of stuff anymore, because it was strictly a marketing ploy to become a bestseller. Now, way before that, I wrote a book called "Now That You're Retiring, What Do You Do With Your Money? What do I do with my money? Now that I'm retiring, what do I do with my money?" And it got into the libraries, and that one was what you're doing. I wanted people to like, now that I'm retiring, what do I do with my money? My question is, what do you plan on spending it on? Well, I don't know. Well, then it's finding purpose and help people find purpose and planning, doing, which I admire what you're doing, but finding that purpose and having a plan that fulfills that. And I got out of that, and I feel bad about helping all these people retire, because I don't believe in retirement now.
Neither do I.
I think that we were meant to create until we can't create anymore. When you go to when God's done with you, that's when you'll die. When you wake up in the morning, you're alive. He's not done with you yet.
That's exactly. That's why every day I wake up, and the odd day I do forget to do it, and I feel off through the day, and then I realize, holy goodness, I forgot to appreciate and thank God for waking up and giving me another shot to be the best version of myself, so I can serve, my fellow humans and help them level up in their lives. And then, I do two things. I thank God, thank you for letting me be alive. I practice gratitude along with that about, just even having feet, being able to stand up and walk, right? Being able to brush my teeth. And then I always say, I welcome you into my day, oh Lord, right? And I find if I
Right.
miss any of those steps, it can be 2, 3 in the afternoon. I'm feeling kind of off, and I'll go, oh, I forgot to welcome God into my day. That's why, even though I know
Oh,
God's always present in my day, it's important for me as his child to acknowledge him
and
and
being
welcome him
diligent. Yeah, and see,
and
that's one of,
welcome
yeah,
him into my day. And thank you for being there for me,
right,
good, bad, and the ugly. Right. So
right. No?
I appreciate what you have
Well,
to say.
well, and so the thing with the Jack Canfield thing, and so I'm a certified train the trainer, and I've gone through the certification here not too long ago, and and I stay in tabs only because he's wanting to have like tens of thousands of trained the trainers because of the information, the principles, the success principles of the book that he came out. Now, a lot of people don't know. Jack and Mark Victor Hansen started the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and then
Yeah.
Jack studied heavily in building self-esteem
Patty
and things. And
Aubrey and
yeah,
the whole
Patty and
thing.
all. So
Yeah.
they're all doing a good thing because if they get more people teaching those attributes that they teach, it's all, if you really look deep into it, it's about what you and I are talking about. It's about connection and love, you know, and learning to realize, strive to have your purpose.
Yeah, I
So,
took a 3-day course of his just here recently online with Patty and him
right.
in the summer, and it was very intense, right? He's got a lot of great things, and you're right. He was trying to get people to join the train the trainer program, and you're right. Like, he's a great man. Why did and speaking of our good friend Jake Ballantyne, Jake had him on one of his calls,
Oh, you
remember?
did. That's right. Yeah.
And that's when I signed up. I think that
Oh,
was
really? Oh
yeah,
my,
I signed
yeah,
up
that
for
was,
I signed up for that 3 days, cost $1,000 or whatever. It was
right.
worth
No.
every penny,
Oh, yeah.
right? Great
No,
man.
yeah, no. So anyway, that's how with that, so a lot of that stuff is part of those things in my life that I'm pretty well done with it. I don't know if it all becomes a part of who I am. And then these, a lot of principles I used to speak at colleges a lot, and I've developed, help and self-esteem. And I realized why did I go through all of that? Now I'm realizing that as my foundation builds and we start building content, providing tools and education um, to connect the generations, to do that connection, that maybe doing those kind of speaking events and those teaching and having people. And for me, it's about connecting, like your podcast and your good word, those are tools and education that keeps people, because you're bringing in good. You're not sitting there talking bad about anybody, or
Yeah.
it's all about good. It's all about, you know bring joy to others.
And that's what life should be, though. A disparaging word is just that, it's disparaging. And I'm certainly not perfect. But the biggest thing is, though, is if I'm in a moment in my life where I feel disparaging toward others or even myself, I've learned that it's a moment. I don't have bad days. I coach on this all the time. I don't. And people say, well, that's impossible.
No.
It is not impossible. You have to learn to identify. You have to learn to admit to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm thinking poorly, or oh my goodness, I just said something poorly to somebody. Go and time yourself out. As an adult, I love timing myself out. Go time myself out.
Send me to
And
kindergarten.
yeah, and I analyze the circumstance, and I'll reach out to people. And I work at body language. I work at looking at people's nuances in their face, their eyes, and I'll reach out to people, whether it's an hour later, the next day, and say, you know what? Yesterday when we were talking, I was talking about this, and I watched your body language. You didn't necessarily respond, but I didn't acknowledge it. I'm acknowledging it now. I triggered something in you, and I apologize if I said or did something to you that made you feel less.
See, that's
Can
where
we
you
can we
get
can we discuss it?
observing instead of evaluating. I'm trying to get more and more away from evaluating things, but observing, and kind of like what you're doing, just being present and observe the things around. When you evaluate or make an
exactly.
opinion, it's either going to take you further away from the truth or closer to the truth. You don't know. So just observing, and like you did, said I was, basically I was observing. I wasn't making a judgment about it. I was observing.
I'm curious. And if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, then sometimes people say, well, no, actually, and you know what, when you do that, when you observe, sometimes the truth reveals itself and that person needed you to do that. And they'll say to
Right.
me, actually, it wasn't anything you said. It just triggered something in my mindset. And I've had this going on. And then I shut up and I listen, because people want to know, like, and trust, like Jake talks about, many other
Right.
people. But trust is built on a foundation of listening and caring and being empathetic. And I've had people say to me, you know what, it wasn't anything you said, but thank you for, acknowledging you've seen something in me. This is what's going on. Oh, okay, let's talk about it. Tell me what's going on. Maybe I can help unburden you, right? Maybe I can help level your life up. Maybe I don't say those words, but just by the general intention of wanting to listen, acknowledging that they have something going on. It wasn't about me. I didn't make it about me. I just say, this is what I observed on you yesterday when we talked, or an hour ago, right? Or this is what I heard in the tonality of your voice on the phone. Is there something I can help you with? If I did something wrong, I apologize. Can we talk about it?
Right.
Well, it wasn't about you, or it was
instead
about
of letting it steam
right.
and
Yeah,
build up
it
and
was
stuff,
about
and it just,
it was about what you said, Dwight.
well, and you're
Can you
being a
tell me
light
what
when
I
you do
did
that.
wrong? Can
So
I
if
tell?
you're,
Can you tell me
there's-
what I said wrong? And those. Well, you said this word. Oh, so if I believe in wordsmithing and being God's servant to uplift people, I need to listen. Maybe that word wasn't the best word. Now I become a better wordsmith, and I don't use that word again, because if it triggers one, it triggers others, and I just don't realize it.
right. Well, and you're being a light by demonstrating that the way that they see that you're being vulnerable, that you're coming out and being brave. And when you light that, and they realize that so many people are afraid of doing it, but then they see you do it, and the response that you get from doing it, they desire that response. And so therefore they're more apt to do it. So you just got to keep modeling that behavior.
And we got to model that with the children more than anybody.
More than anything.
More than anything, we got to help them rise above the noise of all the garbage that's going on, and all the supposed adults that are fighting. And over this, and if it's not one thing, we resolve it, there's another thing. And we're going to get ready to close up here. But one of the things that irritates me the most is we're in a world where in my lifetime, there's never not been war somewhere. And it's not just physical war. It's war of words, war of ideals. It's war of people are feeling so oppressed.
Kind of like the Civil War going on in the U.S. kind of a situation, with the two sides so divided. I just don't even go there anymore. It's such a waste of time.
Well, and I did one of my vlogs here recently, and I talked about the fact that I didn't know what was going on in the media. And here's what happened. I was, a quick little story. I was ending up my podcast here 2 weeks ago. I was waiting for my stuff to come in, and I reached out, didn't hear anything. Well, about a third, if not more, of the production team that this company that I use, they're based in the Philippines. I don't follow the news and the media because I find it depressing for things that I can't control. It's outside of so I try to focus on things I can control. So I don't listen to traditional media, whether it's print or whatever. And one of the guys reached out to me, and Julius said, Dwight, I don't know if you realize it or not, we had a huge typhoon here. Southern Philippines got no power. There's no connection to the internet, no nothing. And two of the people that work on some of your stuff are disconnected. And I said, oh, Roland, I'm so sorry. And here's why I wish I would have known, because the email I sent wasn't harsh, but I didn't preface it with, you know what, I understand things are going on in the Philippines right now. And I wanted to give you my heartfelt, prayers and for safety for everybody that's involved. I understand there might be a slowdown. I just wanted to know what's going on. Is there anything I can help you out with? Right. So that we can get this process and get my podcast out. And if not, oh, well, How can I help in other ways besides praying for you? But because the society is so poisoned and I'm sick of that toxicity, I've cut myself from media, and I did not realize that had gone on in the Philippines. But it was a humbling thing. So I
Right.
messaged him back and I said, I'm sorry. I messaged the team back after he personally reached out to me, the editor. He personally reached out to me because I have his personal connection through Messenger. And he said, this is what's going on. So I sent a message out to the team. I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I've disconnected from media to protect my 6 inches between my ears, but there's no excuses for the fact that I didn't, I don't want you to think I'm not kind and that I'm not empathetic. I'm so sorry you're going through what you're going through. Don't worry about the podcast. If it doesn't get out, it doesn't get out, right? Couple days later, they responded in the group, like the service has a group thing where all of them message, and they said, thank you so much. We really appreciate your kindness. Meanwhile, the editor guy did everything in his power, and he got me at least the podcast to launch, right? And then over the next few hours, he trickled a few more things. And then finally, a couple days later, when they were all up and running in the Philippines, I got the rest of it. So it was delayed a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that people don't realize that the media is gotten to a point where I know somebody like me wants to shut the world out and just be in my little bubble, my little tribe of Roland, and be part of Roland's tribe and Jake's and Leah and Tony and all the people we know that are all trying to uplift and lift the world up. A lot of them don't follow the media. A lot of them don't, because it's toxic. But this is one circumstance where I wish I would have, right? Because I inadvertently, without trying, put my foot in my mouth. It was all business and it wasn't personal.
So you don't follow media and everything. So quick question. Are you aware about this COVID thing that's been going on?
No. What's COVID? What is that? Is that some sort of a newfangled car?
I don't know.
So, Roland, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I would always focus on keeping in your mind to think of the 3 L's. That's what I always do. And the 3 L's are to love, always just love, and learn and listen. And it's just, if you just kind of keep that in front of you, that's for me, is trying to keep in focus, learning humility, learning compassion, that I truly do have love for everyone. I can't think of anyone that I don't love. And people say, well, that's kind of harsh. I said, wait, I ask you a question. How many people out there does God not love? Well, God loves everyone. So you're better than him. How? And it's like, no, you've got to, first commandment, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. Second is love all the children.
Yeah.
And those they're the most 2 powerful ones. So why don't we adhere to them? Why do we follow man? And so that's what I'd say. It's just to, especially the young people. They're coming in this world. Don't compare your chapter 20 with their chapter 1. Don't be judging them by what you've all learned. They're coming in. They're the new leaders of the world. They need to be connected with the Spirit. And, and you sit there and not criticize and judge people. Did you realize that it's okay for a neurologist to not have a degree in accounting?
Yeah.
But yet people judge people by, well, he's stupid and everything. He didn't, he didn't know that the frontal lobe could, or whatever. So it's not judging people and accepting everyone. Accepting, just be kind, be kind, be kind.
Absolutely, 100%. Great closing message. I so appreciate this conversation. So our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way to reach you?
Well, I do have right now, so far, as a Facebook group called Heart of the Fathers Foundation. I'm going to start being a little bit more active on it this year. And I email, if you want to email me, if you're interested in being a bridge fixer, and I know there's rescue workers out there, and that's okay because we need you, but I want the bridge fixers. And I can be reached at Roland, ROLAND, at fixthebridge.com. And if you want the Canadian way of spelling it or the English way of spelling it, they're pretty close to the same. So it's all boot that. So anyway,
I'll make sure it's all in the show notes. And
yeah, so those are basically those right now. That's we're working on getting connect. This is our year that we're really launching and going to really start pushing it. And so that's keep tabs. I'm on Facebook.
right on, and we'll make sure that
Dwight's even a friend of mine. Let me be one of his 5,000 friends.
He paid his dues this month, so he can tell people he's my friend. Next month, I can't promise you that.
He won't take payments. He won't take weekly payments of 25 cents a week.
No, and you can't send me pop bottles from the US. That's just not going to work.
Darn.
So listeners, go to giveaheck.com/podcast. You'll be able to find the show notes and connections to find Roland. And if you're somebody that's nervous because I've had it happen before, reach out to me and I'll connect you to Roland, because Roland's on a mission to ensure that our future leaders are well prepared and listened to, as you heard him say, right? The 3 L's. Don't ever forget that. Love, learn, listen. So on that note, thank you so much, Roland, for being on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together, let us all strive to give a heck.